When I reach 1000 subscribers I will be giving away a $25 Amazon gift card away. To enter, like, subscribe and leave a comment below. This story is a long one, find out how it ends. Posted by u/Lortici. Shamgar's Folly Lortich's Tales from Laurentispes. The year is 1995. I'm living the Gen X dream, hustling for every dollar with a sullen demeanor and a few technical skills. While in college, I worked summers in a sleepy tourist town with a historic vibe. I waited tables, worked in bed and breakfasts, and wrote advertising copy for a local tourist magazine owned by my uncle, Ivan. Ivan's guest guide was in 80% of the hotels, motels, and B&Bs in our town. We put glowing copy and pretty pictures of all the touristy things in a sleg binder that the hotel could add their information to. We sold ads to tourist-oriented businesses. We'd also make them print-ready ads if they didn't have the graphic designers. That's the part of the business that made sense. Accounts payable was on a "make me" basis. Since I was family, I didn't get paid for my copy until Ivan needed something from me. I figured out that 3 unstable Macs with pirated copies of Cork Express, Photoshop and Illustrator were my path to getting paid. Ivan's approach to maintaining these Macs was haphazard at best. One summer night, he calls the restaurant I'm working at. Luckily, I'm closest to the phone. Me, welcome to pretentious and expensive. Ivan, great. It's you. These things are all messed up, and I have to do 2 ads tonight, so I can get them to the print shop tomorrow. I notice the mated within earshot, so I have to be careful about taking personal calls. Me, very good. Let me see what tables I have available. I flip back and forth through the printed reservation book. Me, I can't fit a party of that size tonight. Perhaps 2 days from now? Ivan, what? No. I need it now. Me, we absolutely could provide a birthday cake. Our prices start at $200. I'm sorry, there's some static on the line. I'd need $200 to make that request. Is that acceptable to you? Ivan, hey, I'm running a business here. You can't jack me up like this. Me, thank you. We'll be seeing you this Monday at 7 p.m. We're looking forward to seeing you again. Dr. Pagano. Click. I go back to my work. After my last table has left, I call Ivan back. Me, hey, Ivan, you still need help? Ivan, yeah. All 3 of these pieces of shit are broken as is the internet. You have to help me. Me, I'll be over there in half an hour. Will you have money for me? Ivan, let me see what I can do. I finish cleaning up, jump in my car and find my way to Ivan's tiny office behind a hairdresser's salon. Back in the macOS system 7 days, the bane of every Mac user were system extensions. They'd load at boot, eat up RAM and fight with each other, causing instability. A smart Mac user would use only the ones they needed. A Mac Power user would have different lists, based on what they needed to do for that session. Ivan's strategy, when he could be bothered with extensions, was to install software with more janky extensions in the hopes that, well, something would work. I grab a sheet of paper to write down the extensions I'm loading with the results for each of the poor Macs in Ivan's office. This takes a few iterations as I add and remove extensions. While this is happening, Ivan is talking about all the sales he's making and how "this computer shit is preventing him from getting ahead" while drinking wine out of a Slurpee cup filled with ice. I do my best to ignore him. Eventually I find the smallest combination of extensions that support Quark, Photoshop, the 2 flatbed scanners and the oddball printer Ivan bought. That fixes the Macs. I save the extensions list, available from a drop-down menu at boot, as known good list. I also put post-it notes that read, Ivan, do not change the extensions if you want this to work. Ivan pours me a glass or 2 of astringent homemade wine while I fight with the internet connection. I pick the most recent Mac to test our connection to our mom and pop ISP, the only one that offered phone banks in a non-local long-distance exchange in our podunk town. I'll listen to the sweet sounds of the dial-up, except it's not working. I hear the tones that turn off call waiting, then the dial to the local ISP. Then there's no completed handshake. I just get the "bing bing bing" sound of my modem looking for the other modem to negotiate with. Ivan, what is all that noise? Me, sounds like the modem on the other end isn't communicating right. They've been unreliable since the founder died. I've heard that he promised the Titechers a share of the company, but the owner's wife isn't so amenable. Ivan, why don't we start our own ISP? Me, we've both been drinking. I don't know about this. I stand up and put my hand out. He puts $100 in my hand. Me, Ivan, you owe me for proofing and writing an article about dolphin watching in addition to fixing all this. Ivan, I need you to deliver the final proofs to the print shop in the morning. Then I'll pay you the other half. Fine. I decide that I've had too much to drink, so I push my car into an unmetered spot. It's small enough. I start walking home and decide to stop at my favorite bar on the way for an unnecessary drink. Do I really want to start a small ISP with Ivan? Next morning, I drink some coffee, spend some time tinkering with my temperamental old Triumph, then make my way to Ivan's. Ivan has finished work and to SideQuest drives that need to go to the print shop. He wants to go with me to the print shop. He's excited about something. It's a 45-minute drive to the print shop. Ivan fights over the radio. The print shop is one of those places that hides secrets. It always has a few middle-aged men with suspicious eyes playing cards waiting for something that has nothing to do with commercial printing. There are sterile cubicles filled with recent high-end Max 8100s with professional grade monitors, but nothing else, no artwork, pictures or production schedules pinned to the walls. We drop the discs off, and Ivan goes into an office to have a short conversation with the owner. I amuse myself by browsing the web and enjoying the air conditioning on a hot day. Ivan pops out, even more excited. Halfway home, he directs me to a dumpy strip mall. There's an unmarked office at the end of the 5-store strip. We enter the unmarked office. There are 2 desks covered in desktop PCs in various states of disassembly. Along one wall are metal racks of modems. There are 2 men and an older woman who are radiating hostility at us, each other and the world in general. Ivan introduces himself to the older woman, who ushers Ivan into the office. I'm looking around at the gear. It's mismatched consumer towers with missing drive covers, additional fans zip tied to holes, punched through steel cases. Modems are consumer grade systems feeding back to a rat's nest of cabling. The 2 men are eyeing me suspiciously. My hands are in my pockets, but that doesn't matter for much. I walk over to the closer one, the taller and older of the 2. He's wearing a black SILENC=DEATH shirt, jeans, and combat boots. Me, how's it going? I've been curious about the gear you're running here. Tall guy, don't touch anything. I don't trust you or Ivan. Me, looking at tall guy's monitor. Sorry, by the way, looks like you need your next Slacker floppy. There. Tall guy, I said, don't touch anything. Tall guy pushes me out of the way and knocks over his stack of floppies. Of course, half of them are reproposed AOL floppy disks with Sharpie marks over top. Tall guy starts sorting through the pile of floppies looking for the next one in the series. I sidle over to short guy. Short guy's a pair of Dockers filled with oatmeal. He's silent, but every 2 minutes he does a quick scan of the modems perched on the wire racks. I chatter on, hoping to engage him in conversation, while tall guy flips through his stack of discs like an angry solitaire player looking for that 6 of clubs that will break everything open. Short guy, this is a shitty business to be in. Don't break even on the dial-up. Only money's in the business stuff. I stop flailing with the conversation. Me, really? Short guy, yep. Upstream's not cheap here, and billing is hard. Me, good to know. Eventually Ivan walks out, and into the parking lot. I follow and we drive back to his office. Ivan, that's a mess. Her husband started it, promised those 2 knuckleheads a share, then died. She thinks they are taking advantage, but she doesn't know it works. It's a great time to buy. There's some silence while I drive and think of a clear way to use what I learned. Me, don't buy it, build your own. Ivan, but it's going cheap. Me, it's cheaper to do the profitable parts. Bandwidth isn't cheap here, but in the city, it's a fraction of the price. Just do business hosting and leave the consumer stuff to someone else. I lay out my plan: 2 or 3 PCs running primary/secondary mail, FTP, and web servers for business clients in $resort_area, but co-located in the same city as my college, where bandwidth was cheap. The current ISP is going to fold or fall over soon, and Ivan already knows the business people from his publications. By the time we are at his office, I will build all this in exchange for a share of the business. I make poor choices. It's 1995. I'm a broke college student, and I'm starting an ISP with an unscrupulous and cheap businessman. What could go wrong? I get Ivan to agree to a budget of around $3,000. This will buy 2 used Macs and all the RAM and hard drives I can shove into the cases. I install web, mail, FTP, and FileMaker, all with borrowed licenses. A little bit of testing in Ivan's office confirms that, well, macOS 7.5 isn't exactly stable, so I installed 2 Rebound automatic rebooters. They exploit a quirk of the Apple Desktop Bus, ADB, the proprietary keyboard and mouse connector, that eventually was replaced with USB in the iMac a few years later. In ADB, the Mac regularly queries the keyboard and mouse. If the OS freezes, this process stops. The Rebound listens for the queries, and if they stop for a few seconds, it sends the control command power 3-finger salute to reboot the system. It's a kludge, but it will keep my web server running without much human intervention. Now, all I need is cheap and fast internet. I'm planning on doing something with my college friend Will. Will works part-time as a network engineer for my school. He's not very diligent nor well paid, but he is crafty. Last year, he ran Ethernet from an adjacent college building to his second-floor apartment, giving him the fastest residential internet available. He soon used stolen network gear to support a dozen servers, which kept his apartment toasty in the winter. Later, a roommate moved out, and he moved all the servers into the vacant bedroom and he started charging for the service. I got him through Economics 1001, so he could keep his scholarship, so he should be amenable to a discount on pricing. I pack up some clothes and drive back to the city. I get to my apartment in the city around 8 PM. Marcus, my rich kid stoner roommate, has parked his truck blocking the one remaining parking spot and the back door to our building. I've got to park a few blocks away while carrying 2 full-size towers to the apartment, then walk up to the 4th floor. Marijuana smoke billows out of the door. When I open it, Marcus is sprawled in a beanbag chair on the floor. He's blasting an air, smoking from a massive bong, and wearing a Burger King paper crown. Me, nice look. Marcus, thanks. I had a hard weekend. One of my dad's Burger Kings is getting demolished. Me, as a threat to good hamburgers? Marcus, no, the foundation was poured incorrectly. Since they built it, they're buying it back from him. They'll sit on it until the real estate goes up in value, then knock it down. Me, so it'll just be an eyesore in the suburbs for a while? Marcus, worse. Dad just locked up one day, gave the crew other jobs, and turned off the water and power at the end of a shift. Me, that's even more unpleasant. Remind me to never go in there. Could you help me schlep these towers over to Will's? I'll buy you a 6-pack at the Packy. Marcus, sure. On the several block walk to Will's apartment / low rent car location facility, Marcus and I make the executive decision to buy beer on the way. It's sweltering in the city. I have to lean on the buzzer for a minute or two to get Will to sullenly open the door and let us in. He does seem to appreciate being handed a cold beer for the climb back up the stairs to his apartment. If it was hot outside, it's not too bad inside Will's apartment. Will has supplemented the anemic central air with window air conditioners. There are PCs everywhere, some open and partially disassembled, some running. Some are on the floor, others are shoved into pressboard bookshelves leaning against the weight. This place would make a fire marshal or OSHA spit blood. Will's roommate, Kevin, takes one look at my 2 Mac towers, open beers, and decides that it's time to take a stand. Kevin, no more shit. Get out. I turn to Will. Me, hey, I'll pay you cash every month. Kevin, no. Will, no, man. Just can't do any more. Me, turning to Kevin, what if I could organize all this so that it's neat, clean, and safe? Marcus, me, I'll put all this gear in proper shelves, get it back in the spare room, and pay you $75 a month. You won't even have to admin these things. Will looks around, shrugs his shoulders and nods. I find a relatively clean and clear corner and start looking for power and Ethernet to plug into my 2 Macs. Kevin, no, you clean all this up and then you can set up. Me, fine. I'm going to Macro Center and getting some stuff. I'll be back in a bit and I'll get started. I walk out, with Marcus following with an amused look on his face. On the way back to the liquor store, I put together my plan. Me, Marcus, do you have the keys to your dad's Burger King, and can I borrow your truck for a few hours? Shamgars Part 4. I've agreed to reorganize a co-location facility in the spare bedroom of a student apartment in exchange for hosting 2 servers there. First step is getting some shelving units from a closed fast food restaurant in the suburbs. On the way back, I negotiate a deal with my roommate. In exchange for the keys to the Burger King and the use of his truck, I will trade him an ounce of really good marijuana, fill the tank on his truck and clean it. Getting the keys, driving and finding the place takes longer than I planned, so I get to the Burger King around 1 AM. I park the truck behind the back and aim the headlights at the back door, half to let me see, and half because it's damn spooky here. I fumble through the key ring, and after the 3rd try, get the door halfway open. It seems that someone has tried to break in from the hinge end and the door has a hard stop halfway through. I contemplate knocking the pins out, but I don't want to take the time. I'm greeted with a smell that I see before I fully comprehend how bad it is. If this was a newspaper comic, I'd see lines coming out of the open door. I move a mop and bucket out of the way and make my way in. I yell a few times to let the rats know that I'm here and that they should avoid me. That's what I tell myself. There's what feels like a ½ inch of rancid congealed fry grease on the floor. My well-worn Doc Martens slide like hockey pucks on this surface. If it was hot outside, it's sweltering in here. Luckily, suitable racks are in the first room past the door. And luckily, they are covered with grease. On the top shelf, there are 4 cardboard bag-in-a-box containers of Mel Fry, a foots of a staple. Some moron had decided to poke holes in the bag, so they've drained all over the rack. The other shelves are covered in bags of rotten potatoes. I move the fry oil off the top shelves and spill about 3/4 a cup on me in the process. Great. I look for something to clean my hands off and can only find a bunch of documents. The bags of potatoes are somehow worse. The first one rips open and 30 pounds of rotten muck spills on the floor in my pants. The smell gets worse. I'm imagining that they are boiling with maggots and cockroaches. I've got to do something about it. I stumble out and open Marcus's truck. Rummaging around the cab, I find a dirty bandana. In the lockbox in the bed I find a half-empty bottle of Jenkins vodka, which is what you drink when Popov or Taka is just too damn fancy. I clean the bandana with the vodka, wipe my hands, then re-clean it with more vodka. I then wrap the bandana around my face so all I smell is rail vodka, and trudge back into the stench. I get the rest of the large stuff off the rack, and start wheeling it towards the door. Even putting my back to the door and shoving with my legs, it's not opening another inch. Luckily, these shelves are designed to disassemble. There are 4 upright stainless steel poles that go through holes in the wire shelves. There are plastic inserts that hold the shelves from sliding down. I'm able to break down the first rack in about 10 minutes, and I'm able to load the truck with the first shelving unit. I need at least 2 racks and I'd prefer 3 to put everything together the way I want. I walk back in and realize a few other problems. The second rack is also filled with bag-in-box ingredients that have spilled over the floor and rack. It's also further in the room and the light from Marcus' truck isn't as useful. Marcus' truck is newer than my car, but it's not as meticulously maintained. I don't want to rely on the battery. I'm going to have to go further into the Burger King where I'm relying the street lights instead of headlights. I'm going to be eaten by a grue. I walk back out and turn off the truck's headlights. I find my way back in and try to pull the second rack towards the door. It's not rolling easily. Perhaps it's stuck on something I dropped on the floor. Every few minutes, a car drives past the Burger King, so I have a moment of light to see where things are. I spend that time trying to memorize where everything is, then spend the interval in the dark moving the contents to the floor. When it comes to disassembly, this rack is much harder. It's shorter than the first and fits together a little differently. I'm able to remove all the shelves and one of the vertical poles, but the 3 remaining poles are quite well stuck in the bottom shelf. I take the one pole with me and explore further, looking for something I can use. I consider using my lighter to see my way around, but I'm afraid that being soaked in rail vodka and old grease makes me suitable for starting fires, so I table that idea. I make it to the backside of the counter. I'm crouching down in the hopes that there's a toolbox or a flashlight. The counter is facing the 3 glass walls, so I get a bit more light when the occasional car drives by. I look up from my crouch to see a human figure on the other side of the counter, backlit by headlights. I grip my stainless steel pole with both hands like a baseball bat, plant my feet and stare at the creepy guy on the other side of the counter. He's perfectly still. He's got to know I'm here, and he must be considering his options. Me, yo, dude. I don't want to hurt you, just back up. Silence. He's completely fearless. He's got to be crazy, living in this abandoned Burger King. He's probably thinking of ways to cut me up and cook me on that filthy grill. Still not talking or moving. My heart's thumping, and I get that metallic taste of adrenaline. I swing with all my might, and I bury the pole in his head with a sickening squeaky crunch. I lose my footing on the greasy tile floor and fall on my back. I scramble back up and see him still standing there with a 6-foot pole stuck in his head, right below his crown, but above his creepy smile. Yep, I clocked Burger King. I remove the pole, make my way back to the remaining rack, and using my newfound adrenaline rush, manage to kick the remaining shelf off the poles and load it in Marcus' truck. I grab a stack of paper tray liners, so I don't get the seats dirty, lock up and drive to a 24-hour self-service car wash. A stack of quarters later, I'm soaking wet, but the racks and Marcus' truck are squeaky clean. I smell like sweat, wet dog, grease and hot dumpster juice. It's about 7 AM by the time I get back to the apartment. I'm able to use a bicycle lock to secure the shelves to the back staircase, and I bring the poles into the apartment. I have just enough time to grab my stuff and get to my 8 AM class. I grab the syllabus and find a remote spot in the back of the big lecture hall. My lack of sleep and the exertions of the night start catching up with me about halfway through, so I walk out and try to walk quickly to my apartment. I see potential object of my affections crossing my path. I'd rather not talk to them in my current state, but they turn around after I pass. My crush. LT, is it? Me, yep. I'm sorry, I've had a long night and I need to get some sleep and clean myself up. My crush, I see. I wanted to ask why you were wearing Burger King placemats on your back. Me, can I explain later? My crush, smiling, sure. I go home, take my clothes off in the shower, clean up and nap for an hour and a half. I then rebuild the small shelf, put the parts to the bigger one on it, and roll it to Kevin and Will's apartment/colo. I catch up Will while I'm putting the big rack together in the spare bedroom. He's laughing while I'm still stifling yawns. I want some coffee before I start disconnecting and moving systems, lest things not come back up cleanly. Will, you don't need coffee. You need something stronger. Me, no, coffee will do me fine. Will, this is better. It's a low-dose liquid amphetamine on blotter paper. It'll keep you level for the next few hours. Me, sure. I put the small bit of colored paper on my tongue and start with the systems in their living room. Ever so often I have to grab Will and ask him what services should come back up on the server I just moved. Will sometimes doesn't remember whose system it is, let alone what it's for. I guess that's why hosting with him is so cheap. I start with my boxes, since I may be tired, but at least I know what they're supposed to be doing. I plug them both in and they boot, but none of the services are visible from another system. Me, Will, are you sure you gave me the right types? I'm not seeing anything. Will, well, that's what you get for hosting on Macs, Dumbus. Me, was that IP 51 and 52 or 151 and 152? Well, I've got some 151 right here. Me, no. Your drugs suck, by the way. I'm still tired. Will, rummaging through a stack of papers. Give it another half hour. Me, getting distracted by something. Didn't I see you scribbling on a Chinese takeout menu? Will, yeah, I remember. Haha, beef chow fun. 51. Will gets up and starts rooting through a stack of CDs, inserts one and pushes play. I set the first Mac to XXX51. It looks like it has network. Netscape gets me all to vista.deck.com, so we are good. Stereo, the prison system, inherently unjust and inhumane, is the ultimate expression of injustice and inhumanity in the society at large. I unplugged the monitor and keyboard from my first Mac to the other one. Stereo, those of us on the outside do not like to think of wardens and guards as our surrogates, yet they are. And they are intimately locked in a deadly embrace with their human captives behind prison walls. By extension, so are we. The terrible double meaning is thus imparted to the original question of human ethics: am I my brother's keeper? I set the IP to XXX52. No dice. I change it to XXX50 and I'm good. I start Tambuku, a early Mac VNC/RDP work-alike, and I'm able to lodge into the other Mac. Stereo, the 2nd of February, 1980 began 3 days of misery, a scene of retaliation epitomizing violence, horror, and vindication. Thieves, murderers, and rapists inundated their prison like homicidal sadists. Guards and convicts alike would pay the price. DNS is still wacky. I'm afraid to ask, well, how that mess is configured, and the music is starting to annoy me, which is odd, since I'm a fan of Exodus. It must be that I'm overtired and the walls are gently breathing. I'm realizing 3 things. Will's approach to system management is haphazard at best. That wasn't a mild amphetamine. I have perhaps 30 minutes to finish debugging DNS before things get more difficult than they already have been. I pack up my stuff, grunt a goodbye to Will, and make a beeline home. It'd be better to do this alone, in a quiet dark room. Shamgar Pratt 5. Previously on, I'm starting a low-budget ISP with a disreputable businessman. I've just racked 2 servers in a student apartment with a T1 line. I'm running on a few hours sleep, badly configured DNS, and I'm on questionable drugs. Hit it. I make my way back from Will's Carlo/apartment without serious incident. Marcus is nowhere to be found. I realize that I have a few things to do before I'm unfit for human company. I tutor freshmen and sophomores in intro economics and I have 2 or 3 sessions scheduled for today. A few answering machine messages, and I'm mostly good. I'm not having visual hallucinations yet, but I keep thinking the voices of people in the hallway or out on the street are talking to me. I ignore them for now. I've decided to avoid human contact and enjoy the ride. I grab my provisions and entertainment for the day: a box of Golden Graham cereal, a quart of convenience store iced tea, a VHS copy of Ralph Bakshi's Wizards. I start to settle in my little room and let Avatar and Black Wolf's antics wash over me when I realize that I hadn't actually finished debugging DNS. I start my Mac, connect to the internet and manage to log into my 2 servers. I think I see what I did wrong in my bind config files. A little tweaking, a restart of the server, and I think I'm good. I keep getting distracted by the movie, so I eject the VHS tape and put another in at random. I run through the domains we bought. They're all bringing up the little animated under construction animated GIF. For a few minutes, I stare at the little stick figure guy digging. I wonder if he'll ever finish his task or take a break. I feel a little sad. I know he's just a GIF, but I tap on the glass to check anyway. My phone rings. I stare at the flashing thing for a minute, hoping it will stop. The coherent part of me regrets buying the Unisonic 6900 clear phone with flashy lights, but it was only a few extra dollars. It stops ringing. It starts ringing again. The only way I can make it stop flashing is if I pick it up. I do. There's a voice on the other end of the phone. You know how George Orwell said by 50, everyone has the face they deserve. This person has the voice they deserve. She's earned it by dividing the world into 2 categories: the people that shit on her and the people she shits on. Me. Hello. Karen. Is this law tetchy? Ivan told us that you'd make our site a priority. Me. Regretting that I picked up the phone. Okay. Let me check my email to see what's going on. Karen. We are a very important customer and we expect your full attention. I turn my monitor back on and start a browser. I don't want to engage Karen 2 in conversation while I wait for our Rube Goldberg Linux box acting as a router and dial-up controller to start shoving packets at me. I look at the TV screen and notice that I have bad taste in movies. I turn up the volume so I can hear the TV. Karen, did you hear me? Me. Hold on a second. I'm checking something. TV, you are my agent. I'm your case officer. I In turn, report to your controller. Eudora, the best pop mail client ever written, finally opens my email. Ivan's been busy. He's managed to sell a website to our local tourist board for $100 a month. I've got to set up email for a few of their employees and he's going to start on a website. Karen, what's the hold up? TV, say, Bill, do you think you could rub some of this bug powder on my lips? Me, okay. Ivan's working on the site. I'm going to set up your email addresses and set the passwords to bug powder 95. You should change them the first time you log in. Karen, sounding more annoyed than previously. How am I expected to do that? I stop and look at Peter Weller's stony face for a second and turn off the TV. I need to concentrate. Karen, well, I Timbuktu into the mail server and start setting up Karen's domain and users. Me, it's going to take me a few minutes to get everything set up. I've set up your users. Next I'm going to set up your web server. Karen, you said something about changing my password. Where do I put that? Me, hold on a second, one thing at a time. I start hearing a rustling on the phone. It takes me a second to realize that Karen is pouring through a bag of potato chips and eating them at me. Normally this would only be annoying, but combining my lack of sleep, Karen's existence and the chemicals in my brain, it's a maelstrom of awfulness. She's going to start gnawing on the phone and somehow yank me over the lines into her gaping more like some joke creature in Dragon magazine. Karen, clop, carg, crunch. I look for something to make this stop. For a reason you can guess, I decide the best thing to do is to eat back at her to balance out things. I shove a handful of golden grahams in my mouth and start chewing. I can't hear her chewing anymore. DNS is set up, and a stop/restart of the bind server looks like we are working. For some dumb reason, I'm finding it hard to correctly type their domain, since there's a significant lag between my keyboard and the remote control software. Karen's getting impatient, but she's put the chips down for the moment. Karen, what are you doing? How do I check my email? We have a dull conversation about finding an appropriate POP client, Outlook Express, and where to put in dull information such as incoming and outgoing email servers on the 4 different PCs in their office. She picks up some other food stuff that sounds more chewy/slurpy than crunchy for the username/password part of this drill. 3 of the 4 systems go relatively easy, and I only have to eat a few mouthfuls of golden grahams at her. The 4th takes longer. It's the furthest from Karen's desk, so she pulls the phone cradle as far as it can go, puts the handset on some hard surface and walks away from it to the 4th PC. This requires me to yell the username and password several times at her. Karen, what? Me, bug powder 95. Karen, where does that go? Me, in the box that says password. Karen, what goes there? Me, bug powder 95. During all this, her phone is rocking on the table or desk it's sitting on, making an insectile clicking sound that I can hear. I'm imagining it turning into some giant Precambrian lobster, waving its awful artificial limb-colored claws at me. I look in my translucent phone to make sure it's not crawling through the lines and getting caught in the headset, like in Wrath of Khan. Karen either makes it work or gives up. I slowly disconnect the phone line from my phone and slide it out of my room. Marcus is in the hallway and sees me, covered in golden grahams, flustered and sweaty. Marcus, what was all that racket? Me, tech support. I decide to watch regular daytime TV in the living room with Marcus. For the only time in my life, I find Delta Burke in designing women hilariously funny. Amazingly enough, we kept the tourist board, bringing on several hundred accounts over the next few months. Ivan paid me sporadically when I threatened him, but never complained when I ran my friends' web stores, banned websites and PHPBB forums off of our servers. I remember getting the "tell us how you dealt with a difficult technical problem and how you solved it" question at a job interview. I considered telling the Karen story, but thought better of it and made up a more conventional story. When I reach 1,000 subscribers, I will be giving away a $25 Amazon gift card away. To enter, like, subscribe and leave a comment below.